Hello everyone, this is Naresh Bemorpu from the Virology College, HOD of Data Science. Today I am going to explain you about some of the practical oriented programs in data science, in which the first program is about the generators and iterators. So in that the first concept is what is meant by an iterator and an example program on the iterator. So first of all, what is meant by an iterator means it is an it is an object. It is used to mainly iterate over iterable objects. So what is meant by iterable object? So for example, if you consider a list of elements 2, 6, 8, 10 and 12. If you want to print these elements on the console, we need to iterate a loop starting from the 2 and ending with 12. So that means here we are iterating through the elements of the list here. So list is one of the example for iterable object. So through iterate over this iterable object, we require an object called iterator. So finally, an iterator is an object used to iterate over iterable objects. Iterable object means here either list, tuple, dictionary, and sets. So it is also one of the example for list here. And to implement the iterators concept, we need to know mainly about two things here. The iterable objects can be implemented by using two methods. One is iter method and the second one is next method. The purpose of the iter method is which returns an iterator for the supplied object, and whereas the next method is going to retrieve the next item from the iterator object. So then I'm going to explain this concept by taking a simple example. So here is the example program, and here I taken a list of elements, and you already know that it is one of the iterable object because it is a list and we can able to iterate through the elements of the list here. So starting from the first element to the last element. So X is an iterable object. On this object, if you want to iterate through these elements, we need to create an object called iterator object, and that iterator object can be created by using a method called iter. So whenever we are passing the X list as an argument to the iter object, it is going to be create an iterator object, and we are going to assign that one into the variable called A. So now what is meant by variable A means A is an iteratable object and which contains the list of elements what we are having within the variable called X. And if you want to retrieve these elements, we need to use another method called next. So whenever you are calling the method called next of A, so A means the iterable object. So whenever you are passing an iterable object to the next method, which retrieves the first element of the method initial, so that is 25. And if you are going to invoke the same method again, it is going to fetch the second element from the list, that is 78. And if you repeatedly calling that method multiple number of times here, so which is going to be retrieve the upcoming elements from the list of elements, that means iterable object here. So it is the implementation of the iterator program. So here we are using two methods mainly. One is the iter method, which can be used to create the iterator object. On the iterator object, to fetch the elements, we are using the method called next. So for example, I'm going to run this program by pressing the F5 here. So when I'm running this program, initially we displayed the object A, that is iterable object, so which will displace that one as an object here. And after that, we use a number of print statement by passing the next method. So for each next method, it is going to be retrieve multiple number of values within the list as output here. So that is the purpose of the iterator object. So it works like a for loop. So within the for loop, internally we are having an iterator object. But that means the for loop or while loop or do while loop are implemented by using the concept of the iterator object. The next program is about the generators in Python. So before going to that, we have to know about what is meant by a generator. So simply, the generator can be used to create an iterator function. So in the previously we already learned about what is meant by an iterator object. So the generators mainly used for creating an iterator object. And in the generator object we have a statement called yield. So generally we saw the statement called return within the functions, but in generator object we saw a statement called yield. So generally the return statement can be used to terminate a function completely, whereas the yield statement can be used for passing the function, so which passes the execution of a function up to some period of time until we are doing some action. So what it means, I'm going to explain by using an example program here. So it is the example program I already taken here, and in which I'm going to create two iterator objects here. One is the simple object and the another one is multiple yield. Through multiple yield function I'm going to create an iterator object called OBJ. So how it works, so I'm going to tell you about now. So here, if you observe this loop, I'm going to be call the function called simple multiple number of times. So whenever I'm calling the function called simple, it is going to be execute this definition, and within this definition I'm going to repeat a for loop up to 10 number of times starting from 0 to 9. So in this function, for example, initially the value of I is 0, and I'm going to verify that 0 modulo division by 2, it will be equal to 0. So the condition is true. So then I'm invoking the function called statement called yield I. So whenever, generally the function need to repeat it up to 10 number of times starting from 0 to 9. But when I am invoking the statement called yield I, which passes the execution of this looping statement, so that means which passes the execution of this simple function, and it is going to execute, it is going to be create this item, sorry, it is going to add this item as an element for the simple object here. So now the simple object contains what means an element called 0. So after storing that element into the simple object, once again it is going to repeat the loop the second time. So that means whenever the I value will be equal to 2, the condition is true, and once again we are going to pass the execution of the loop here. So the I value once again is going to store in an object called simple. So now the simple object contains two elements, one is 0 and second one is 2. And after the completion of storing the element into the simple object, once again it is going to repeat the loop by increasing the value of I as 3, after that 4. So whenever I value is 4, the condition is true here, and once again we are going to pass the execution of the simple function, and in that parsing stage we are going to store the element within the simple object. So finally the simple object contains how many number of elements means whenever the I value is modulo division by 2 will be equal to 0. So within the range of 0 to 9, those values are going to be stored into the simple object. So that means the simple object contains the values 0, 2, 4, 6 and 8, and we are going to print those elements within the first iterator object by using a for loop here. And we can also able to create the generator object, iterator object, by using the concept of generators in another way. So for example, if you observe this one, I'm calling the function called multiple yield. So multiple yield. So whenever I'm invoking this function, it is going to execute this definition, and in which I just first called the function, first initialize the string variable called first string. I'm invoking the statement called yield str1. So when I'm invoking the yield statement here, it is going to pass the execution of the multiple yield function, and it stores the string 1 value into the variable called object. So now the object contains one value, that is string 1, and after storing that value it is going to execute the second line of the function, that is the string 2 equal to second string. And once again I am going to invoke the statement called yield string 2. So when I am invoking this statement, it passes the execution of the multiple yield function, and which stores the string 2 value within the variable called object. Now the object contains two values called first string and second string. So after completion of the storing that string 2 in the object, it is going to execute the third line within the function definition, that is string 3 equal to third string. And once again I am invoking the function called yield. So whenever it was invoked, it is going to pass the execution of the multiple yield function. So just it stores that value within the object called obj. So now the obj object contains three values: first string, second string, third string. And you know that how to invoke the values of the iteratable object by using the next method. So by using next method, I am going to print those three values. So first string, second string, and third string. So just I want to show the execution of this program. So when I am executing this program, initially the simple object values will be printed here. Those are 0, 2, 4, 6, and 8. And after that, the second iteratable object values will be printed here. That is first string, second string, and third string. And it will be created as a generator object because it will be created as it was created through the yield method. So yield through yield method it was created. That's why it is treated as a generator object. So just see the output of the program here. So it is the output of the program. So initially we have the elements called 0, 2, 4, 6, 8. It was printed from the first object, and after that we printed the generated object here, and after that we printed all the elements within the generator object by using the next method. So this is about the generators in Python.